Every morning at exactly 5:00 a.m., a boy named Illy would rise not to play games or scroll through his phone, but to write one page in a battered notebook. Just one page. Nothing magical happened at first. His neighbors mocked him, his classmates ignored him, and his own father said, "You're wasting time." But what they couldn't see was the quiet revolution unfolding, because sometimes the smallest habits hold the loudest power. And by the time they realized it, Illy was no longer the boy who struggled. He was the man who inspired the world. Illy grew up in a crumbling apartment block in the rough part of Detroit. His mother passed away when he was 6, and his father, once a promising mechanic, drowned his grief in alcohol. The home was silent most days, except for the hum of broken dreams and the occasional shouting match next door. At school, Illy was invisible. He wasn't athletic. He wasn't loud. He wasn't even particularly smart, at least not in the traditional sense. Teachers often confused his silence for disinterest, and students laughed at his old shoes and awkward frame. But Illy had one secret. Every night before bed, his mother used to tell him, "Little habits make big miracles." After she died, those words haunted him until one night, when he picked up an old pen and wrote on the last page of a math notebook, "Tomorrow, I will wake up and write one page. I don't care if it's good, I'll just write." The next morning, he did exactly that. He wrote a page, then the next day another. He didn't write stories, not at first. Just thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Sometimes quotes, sometimes memories. It was messy but consistent. He woke up at 5 a.m. before the sun while the city still slept. He didn't tell anyone. He wasn't doing it for likes or followers. He did it because it made him feel alive. It made him feel in control. Slowly, something shifted. His grades started to improve, not because he studied more, but because he understood himself better. The chaos inside began to calm. One teacher, a Miss Taylor, noticed, "You've changed, Illy," she said one day. "Whatever you're doing, keep going." He smiled. It was the first time someone believed in him since his mom died. But the world wasn't going to let him win that easily. One winter night, Illy came home to find his father passed out on the floor, a bottle still clutched in his hand, the heating off and the windows frosted over. Illy had no coat. He sat shivering at the kitchen table and stared at his notebook. "I'm done," he whispered. "This is pointless." He didn't write that night, or the next, or the next. He fell behind in school. His anxiety returned. Sleep vanished. A week later, his teacher called him after class and asked, "Are you okay?" Tears welled in his eyes. "I don't think any of this will ever change." Miss Taylor didn't lecture him. She just handed him a small wrapped box. "Open it when you're ready," she said. That night, in his freezing room, he unwrapped the box. It was a brand new notebook with an inscription inside. "1 page a day is all it takes. M.S. Taylor." He cried the next morning at 5:00 a.m. He began again. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. His pages grew stronger, more focused. He started writing stories, poems, and essays. He submitted a short story anonymously to a local contest. He won, but he didn't stop there. He started a blog under a fake name and posted one story a day. The stories were raw, honest, and deeply human. People began sharing them, thousands of readers, then tens of thousands. He was still the quiet boy at school, but online he was a voice that made people cry, hope, and heal. Eventually, a popular motivational speaker shared one of Illy's blog posts and said, "I don't know who this is, but they've changed my life." Publishers began to reach out. When he was 18, he signed his first book deal. The world finally knew his name, and it all started with 1 page a day. Years later, Illy stood on a TED stage in front of 1,000 people. His father, now sober and sitting in the front row, watched with teary eyes. Illy began, "I was never the smartest, fastest, or strongest, but I had something no one could take away from me. A small habit and a big belief, 1 page, 1 act, 1 choice, every single day. That's what saved my life." He paused and looked into the crowd. "People ask me what the secret is. The truth, it's not about doing everything at once. It's about doing 1 thing every day, until that 1 thing changes everything." The crowd stood and applauded. But Illy didn't smile for the praise. He smiled because he remembered the boy who had nothing but a broken pen and a whisper of hope. And he knew that boy would be proud. Massive change doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from small steps taken consistently with quiet courage. Illy Carter